All right, friends, welcome back to the Blessed Family Podcast. We are, if you're listening to this, and if I'm speaking this, then we are still in the land of the living, which is something to be very, very thankful for. We still have this opportunity this side of eternity to bear fruit for God, to while we are in this fallen world, in these days that are evil, to glorify Him, to produce fruit, to take dominion for His name's sake. Well, as you know, on the Blessed Family Podcast, we always, our main focus is family because we think family is awesome. We think family is very strong. Family is very important in God's kingdom. Family is Genesis 1. Family predates government, at least societal government. Family is its own form of government, of course, and it predates church. It is foundational. And God wants to, God does whatever He wants to, but I believe by God's grace that He is raising up biblical families. Not perfect families, those don't exist, but He's raising up biblical families because in His grace, He is going to show His power by blessing this world, by His church discipling the nations, giving His church the grace and the means to disciple the nations. And one of the most powerful means of that, in my personal opinion, is family, not only for discipling the nations, but also discipling the nations from the inside out. Because guess what? Everyone in every nation comes into this world as a son and a daughter. And so when family is functioning in alignment with God's word, great things happen. Speaking of family, speaking of children, today we're going to focus on sons. And we're going to talk about 5 things all sons must do or should do. By the age 10 to 17, roughly, you can stretch that. These are just principles, so they're definitely flexible in that regard. And you could also tweak this to daughters. You can definitely take these principles, tweak them to daughters. There's lots of overlap here. Maybe sometime soon we'll do 5 things all daughters should or must do by 10 to 17. Now, this obviously varies child to child. Just because I have my sons doing something at 15 doesn't mean your son should be doing it at 15. Maybe your son should be doing it at 12, or some of your sons should be doing it at 18, right? We need to be very careful not to look at other families and say, okay, they did this at this time, and therefore, that is to think like the state. The state, for instance, in education says, well, all 5th graders should be at this level. No, not necessarily. Some of them aren't quite ready for that, but the majority of them, especially with state education philosophy, should be well beyond that. So we want to be gracious with this, but I would encourage you, parents, this is a challenge to you. Write these down, add to them, change them, tweak them. This is about manliness. This is about work ethic. This is about confidence. This is about raising sons of integrity. This is about not succumbing to the mediocre standards of this modern Christian or post-Christian era, right? The things that great-grandpa was doing at 12, many 30-year-olds have not yet accomplished. And so we want to be strategic. We want to raise the bar. We underestimate our children big time. I'm guilty of that. And you know what? I mean, just before I stepped in here to do this podcast, I challenged my 2 sons who are home, Jedediah and Job, with reading. I said, look, you guys need to read better books, bigger books. You need to love reading more. I've fallen short on that. Here, give it a go. And to do so, not out of an attitude of fear or legalism, but to smile and say, hey, man, listen, you're awesome. God is with us, but let's work on reading. This is something Dad at 44 years old is also working on. By the way, you can say a prayer for my 2 oldest sons, Jared and Isaiah. They are at, this week they are at Patriot Academy, which is Rick Green's ministry. They're there at the Capitol passing legislation. Should I share the legislation they're passing? I'll share one of them. My son Jared is proposing a bill that we should declare war on Mordor. And that is the kind of seriousness that just reflects well on my family as these people hear about Dodd Family Ministry and they hear of our family. And my eldest son is going into the state capital of Texas, and he is trying to pass legislation to declare war on Mordor. Wow. Good job, Jared, too. I've never been more proud. He's awesome. Okay. So let's get into these 5 things that all sons must or should do. First of all, here's a great goal. Have your sons work hard all day in the sun. Have them work hard all day in the sun. This can be at age 8, it can be at age 12, it can be age 15, but just to get it done at some point earlier is better. But teach them to love work. Teach them, this is about conditioning the body. There's an author called R.M. Ballantyne. My boys and maybe my girls have read some of his books. Seems like a really cool author. Many of his things are in the public domain. R.M. and then with a B, Ballantyne. But he wrote this article one time about how boys need to climb up in trees and then jump out of them. By the way, we aren't liable for any injury your children might accumulate from this podcast, but boys need to toughen themselves up physically. And one thing is being able to work out in the sun all day. And kind of the bonus level would be all week, all summer. Get them accustomed. I can remember going on a mission trip to El Salvador when I was somewhere between 17 and 19. And I teamed up with this youth group from, I think it was Illinois or Indiana, one of those wonderful Yankee states. And these poor guys, I felt so bad for them. Not their fault. This isn't about work ethic. This is just about conditioning your body. They were lobsters. They were so burnt down there in El Salvador. They were just panting. And it's not their fault. I mean, it's just about different levels of heat, whereas I was, just kicking it, working on my tan piece of cake. So condition your boys to work hard. Second one is have your sons travel. Your sons need to travel. Now, this might be riding their bikes 5 miles to grandma and grandpa's house by themselves at the appropriate age. You choose when that is. I'm not going to. One time when my boys, my eldest boys were maybe 10 and 9, we were at the library, which is about 3 miles away, and kind of some dangerous roads. They had to cross a bridge, and a cop stopped and talked to them. Different people pulled over. So maybe it wasn't the best idea, but we did it anyway. We said, hey, you guys are walking home, and they loved it. Get them to travel. When they get their licenses, which look, not to judge anyone, don't take this personally if I'm speaking to you, but more and more I hear of sons and daughters that do not get their driver's licenses. Like they're 20 years old, 21, 22. Now, clearly there are some sons and daughters that have special needs where that's going to be an issue and you need to have grace with that. So I'm not saying if your child doesn't have their license at 16 that you failed if they have those special needs. But if they don't struggle with those kinds of, whether it's anxiety or whatnot, not that you failed, it's not like the Bible says, the 11th commandment, thou shalt have your driver's license, but man, get it done. Grow them up. Get them where they can get behind the wheel of a car and travel. So what this was for us, maybe you've heard me share this story before, when Jared was 16 and 3 weeks old, he and Isaiah, who was 14 at the time, they got in the car and they traveled over 1,000 miles north by themselves from Texas to North Dakota, attending a family camp by themselves. And it grows them up. I mean, men need to be confident in being able to travel. If something happens where all of a sudden I tell one of my boys with a driver's license, hey, Grandma and Grandpa Kaiser, they're in Kentucky, they need you, go. They need to have the knowledge, skill, confidence to get a map. By the way, a map. Look it up. Google it if you don't know what that is, but people used to use those. But they need to be able to get a map, get in the car, and go. So travel. And once again, that can be, at 10, being able to walk down to someone. So, having confidence at appropriate times and measures, getting away from mom and dad and being able to go to destinations by themselves. I think that's a big deal. Number 3, the third thing that all sons must do, and like I said, there's many carryovers to daughters, so definitely apply this to daughters also, but I want to focus on sons. Number 3 is they need to have adult conversations. And man, the younger, the better. But let me practically give you some tips on what this looks like. And I think I shared this in a recent podcast, but my eldest son, Jared, he goes to a men's meeting every Friday morning at 6:30, I think it is, at the local Chick-fil-A. where he's also employed along with Isaiah. He goes there, and I encourage him, which he doesn't need the encouragement, by the grace of God, proud dad moment. He has this wisdom, but he doesn't talk. He just sits and observes. If they ask him a question, he'll share briefly. But he is there just to be around grown men, Christian men, and learn how to talk like a man. Last week, some of you know that I recently got elected mayor of Cottonwood Shores, Texas. And last week, I went in to talk to the city planner, JC, and I took my son, Isaiah. He's 16, and he sat and he listened to a mayor and a city planner talk about issues, just growing him up, seeing, oh, this is how people talk. Have you noticed how there are many sons and daughters, unfortunately, even in the church, who don't know how to have a conversation with you as an adult? You talk to them and they look at you weird. Their eyes get big. They look very confused. Well, you don't want your sons and daughters to be those kinds of people. So get your sons around men and teach them how to introduce themselves, how to listen, and most importantly, well, I'll have you solve the next blank or fill in the next blank. When Jesus was 12, the only story that we have of Jesus in his youth is when he was 12. And what was he doing? First of all, who was he with? Mature, godly men. And what was he doing? He was asking questions. And God, in my opinion, put that in the Bible for us to know what to expect from a 12-year-old son. Great S.M. Davis sermon, by the way. You can find it on YouTube. What to expect from a 12-year-old. Please check that out. All right, so first they need to work hard all day in the sun for many days in a row. They need to know how to travel and have the confidence to get to destinations, right? I mean, this is what made the Pilgrims able to do what they did. This is what made people able to go down the Oregon Trail. Lewis and Clark stuff. So like maps, compasses, directions. Okay, go 2 blocks here, turn right, go 1 block, go this. Put the GPS. GPSs aren't evil or wrong, but they don't by themselves make strong men. Men need to know how to operate a GPS. But put them away. Give your sons and daughters directions. Give them maps. Okay, number 4. We got 2 more. Number 4, sons need to read big, old books. At some time while they're in the home with you, they need to read big, old books. Let me name a few that I would encourage you to consider. Homer's Iliad, Homer's Odyssey. Dante's Divine Comedy, Virgil's The Aeneid. That's classical books. They need to read books like Robinson Crusoe, Swiss Family Robinson, Les Miserables. They need to read books on prayer like the one I can't think of. I think it's called Prayer by, is it Buttrick? I think it's Buttrick. Or a little bit of Calvin's Institute of the Christian Religion, or Augustine's Confessions, or Luther's book, The Three Treatises, or G.K. Chesterton's book, Orthodoxy, I think it's called. Books like, they need to read the Declaration of Independence. Get them to read The Count of Monte Cristo. Just get them to read good old books. And I'll quote C.S. Lewis. Oh man, am I going to be able to get this quote right? He said, we need to not, the context was he was saying how to keep our minds on track with God and his kingdom and not to be pulled off into all kinds of modern, he didn't use this word, but I will, wokeism. And he said, this is done by keeping the sea breeze of the centuries blowing through your mind, and that's only done by reading old books. So get your sons to read old books. Have them read Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford. Get them to read old books. Okay, last but not least, wrapping this up today, get them to build something. To build something that requires skill. This can look different at different ages. Get your 6 and 7-year-olds to build a birdhouse, or those old style one handle open concept toolboxes. Get them to build bookshelves. Hey, give them a love for reading. Here's an idea. Give them a love for reading. Give them books and present it to them as, hey, these will be books that you'll pass on to your grandchildren. And every time they read the book, have them write their name and the date in the book. This is a practice we've had the last 5 years, and I love it because I'll pick up a book, open up to the back. Sometimes we do it in the front. Usually I tell them to do it at the back, but I'll open it up. Like we have some lamp lighter books, and I can open it up on the back, and it says Dodd family, meaning I read it to my children, this date. Ivy Dodd, this date. Jared Dodd, Isaiah Dodd, Ruby Dodd, right? Jed, Job. It's a lot of fun. But give them a love for books, and then have them build a bookshelf. And say, hey, we're going to build this, and this is going to be your bookshelf for your books. Have them build other furniture, maybe a dining room table, a bed. Have them build a bedstand. Is that what it's called? A bedstand? I'm not sure. Have your sons restore a car if you're mechanically inclined, or if you're not, but someone in your church or fellowship is. Say, hey, can you do me this favor? Can we barter skill trading with our children? I'll teach your kids how to do this, but could you, I'm going to buy an old car. You can help me pick it out. And can you help my son work and restore this car? Have them weld a barbecue pit. Have them write a novel. So that's building something that's more mental. Have them build a shed. And the list goes on, but have your sons learn skills, carpentry, masonry, welding, plumbing, have them plumb a house. Something. Have them work with an electrician. And that's kind of getting into something else. That's all good. Have them apprentice themselves under someone. But I'm saying build something together. Build something, like for us, we started building bookshelves, and, I built the first 2, and then I said, hey, Jared and Isaiah, you're going to help, and they built the next 2, and then all 4 of my older boys built the next 4 to stack on top. And so we have this huge bookshelf with about 4,000 books, and it's been built by my boys. All right, friends, so these are 5 practical goals. Let me give them to you again. Work hard all day in the sun. Number 2, travel. And keep in mind that can be around the block or around the country. Number 3, have adult conversations. Number 4, read big old books. Number 5, build something together. Write these down. Make them mission objectives for your family. Add to them, tweak them, bathe them in prayer and love. Come to your sons with these, or your daughters if you tweak it for your daughters. Not with, hey, you should be doing this. We're falling behind. No, not at all. Say, hey, let's do this together. This is going to be fun. And bless them and praise them, and you'll see wonderful fruit. All right, friends, as always a pleasure being with you. Love you all very much. God is with you. Be encouraged. Let's press forward while we're still in the land of the living. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.